This past winter, I curated an exhibition of Ben Zion's work at the newly inaugurated Ma'or Art Gallery in a small Chabad shul, synagogue, in Crown Heights. Just before I installed the show, I spent nearly a month in Israel, and while there, my mind did a subterraneous dance, a choreography which was part joy and part agony. I asked myself, in these days, in this time, how to give name to this art exhibition. I landed on Ben Zion, Hineni, I am here. My inner dialogue continued when the wonderful professor Magda Tetter asked me to lend many Ben Zion works to Fordham's exhibition of the Clay Bar Yad collection beyond the 3 iron pointers. If you indulge the intentional pun, what do the vision and creations of Ben Zion point to? The Yads in the Bar collection span from the antique to the contemporary, somehow pointing to that essential of Jewish teachings. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה, ותומכיה מאושר. She, the Torah, is a tree of life to those who hold her. Happy are all who support her. Ben Zion drew his belief in the loftiness of artistic creation from the Hebrew Bible. In his memoir, In Those Days, he notes that God names the first artist craftsman, Betzalel ben Uri, which means in the likeness and shelter of God, son of my light. In an early poem, Shiva, Returning, Ben Zion gives voice to the longing for the timeless and eternal that is a driving force in his compulsion to remain true to his artistic urges and vision. And I quote from the poem, "And like a rope maker, backwards I move to the days of my beginning and twist the threads of my past till I reach to the source I derived from, to eternity." But the timeless must be balanced with the human and surely very Jewish instruction to be rooted in the here and now, in our body and the skin of nature. In a much later poem, Ben Zion writes, "In the feet, the yearning to the earth, in the eyes, the hunger for the boundlessness of the heavens." The recurring image of the bound dancer reflects Ben Zion's preoccupation with the timeless questions and struggles in the human drama. His sources are rooted not only in the Hebrew Bible and Jewish teachings. He appreciated art from all cultures and eras, gathering objects from the prehistoric to the present and studying the great masters. His literary sources went far beyond the Jewish world, ranging from the epic poem of Gilgamesh and Enkidu, of which he made numerous drawings and a portfolio of 36 etchings, to Cervantes's Don Quixote, the subject of numerous iron sculptures. In everything that he did, Ben Zion was searching for evidence of the creator's mark, be it human or nature. Self-taught and erudite, he lived modestly in the home studio he created with his beloved Lillian. with all he gathered from nature, from the prehistoric to the ancient to the antique, dialoguing between periods of history and bodies of geographies, all saturated with the awe and appreciation of his beingness. It was a great blessing to meet Ben Zion in his 82nd year, to work with him until his death 9 years later, and to continue this labor of love, working with his wife Lillian for the next 25 years. I want to tell you something of the man. The artist was born Ben-Zion Weinman in 1897 in Stary Konstantin, Ukraine, to his father, Tzvi Hirsch Weinman, a third-generation cantor and composer of liturgical music, and his mother, Sarah, an enchanting storyteller. In the 1930s, when he became known as a painter, he dropped his family name, saying, "One name is enough for an artist." An action that was both a break with the formalities of the past and an emphatic stamp of being. From childhood, he was a nonconformist. His silent immersion in prayer disturbed his father, as it appeared dangerously close to the contemplative passion of Hasidism. He studied in yeshiva and with private teachers. His father hoped he would become a rabbi and a scholar. However, he was inclined towards drawing and gathering things, which was looked upon as frivolous and unbecoming. As a youth, he began reading translations of Emerson, Thoreau, and other philosophers. At 16, reading Spinoza revolutionized his thinking and provoked him to stop joining his father for Shabbat services at the synagogue. By now, he had developed and nurtured a love for the Hebrew language, playing with words, conjugating verbs, which he would in later years compare to his delight in playing with pebbles. He rented a room at the outskirts of town, supporting himself by giving Hebrew lessons. Here he was able to read and draw without disturbance, and it was here that he adopted the wheat fields and pine woods. He walked endlessly. Walking was his great happiness. His youth taught him that, and he remained tied to the earth for all his days. It was a walking meditation, an unbroken dialogue with nature. As an old man, when asked, actually I asked him, if he believed in the possibility of learning from a teacher, he replied, "Yes, go into the woods, pick up a stone, look at it, turn it over, look at it." Indeed, this was his artistic training. He was completely self-taught, except for a brief period of study at the Art Academy in Vienna as a young refugee during the First World War. After his father's death in 1920, he emigrated to New York, carrying a knapsack filled with his Hebrew poems and dramas and his father's music manuscripts. Over the next decade, he befriended the important Hebrew and Yiddish writers living in New York. He supported himself by giving private Hebrew lessons and devoted himself to writing. An early broadcast of Hitler distressed him to the point that he felt his own words were, in quotes, ridiculous and futile. And just like that, nothing. I couldn't write. I felt so helpless. I couldn't go out. End of quote. This is his writing, his hand. He despaired of writing and turned again to drawing and painting. He bought old books by the pound, using the handmade end papers for his drawings made with sharpened twigs dipped in ink. Too poor to afford canvas, he painted on discarded breadboard and closet shelves. He lived in the Bronx, along the great parks. A foot injury that left him bedridden spurred his first series of ink drawings inspired by the rooftops outside his window. It was this suite of drawings that attracted the attention of J.B. Neumann, the great European art dealer who introduced Paul Klee and other important artists to America. In 1935, Ben-Zion joined the Secession Gallery. The following year, he was a founding member of the artistic group known as the 10, which included Mark Rothko and Adolf Gottlieb, among others. They rejected the conservative regional painting in vogue in America and were instead inspired by the individual expressionism more common in European painting at the time. In 1938, at the Mercury Galleries, the 10 exhibited as the Whitney Dissenters, a direct challenge to the aesthetic embraced by the Whitney Museum, just a block away on 8th Street. The group disbanded the following year, as most of the artists became affiliated with particular galleries. Ben-Zion's work flourished in the 1940s when he exhibited at prominent galleries and major museums, including the Art Institute of Chicago, the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Jewish Museum, New York, which hosted as its inaugural exhibition the first of 3 one-man shows of his work. Important museums, including the Phillips Collection and the Museum of Modern Art, acquired his work. In the 1950s, Ben-Zion learned the art of printmaking. The influential dealer Kurt Valentin, who showed Max Beckmann, Marino Marini, and Henry Moore, published 3 portfolios of Ben-Zion's biblical etchings. These were exhibited at Valentin's Buchholz Gallery, as well as other major galleries and museums, including the Smithsonian Institution and Duveen Graham. In 1957, Ben-Zion traveled to Israel for the first time for his first one-man show at the Bezalel National Museum. Later, he had several solo exhibitions in Israeli museums. As abstract expressionism and minimalism rose in popularity in the mid-1950s, Ben-Zion's art received less public recognition. Nevertheless, he continued to work in his own style, even expanding his oeuvre to include sculpture. He treasured iron as a material and had long collected hand-forged iron. He breathed new life into these found objects by transforming and assembling them into sculptures, playful and whimsical, abstract and narrative, masks, birds, insects, Jewish life, biblical heroes, forging an endless universe born of his imagination and inspired by the material itself. To witness Ben Zion take in the world, walking in the rain through an apple orchard, inhaling a sip of water, enraptured with music, evoked what Glenn Gould said of Johann Sebastian Bach, in quotes, he was less interested in dramatic resolution than the joyous essence of being, which goes on and on. Ben Zion is at home in his Jewish skin and allows the light of other wisdom traditions to penetrate his pores. His way of living and working evoked what his friend, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, pointed to, and I quote, "Right living is like a work of art. You must live your life as if it's a work of art." Thank you.